Hello there. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. And we are needing to do some things here. We are the show that is trying to make the world safe for ADHD. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. I have a private practice, and about probably half or 60% or so of all I do is about ADHD. I'm also the parent of a child with ADHD. And as I've said probably every time I've done this show, I have made all the mistakes I think it's possible to make with an ADHD child. I did that, like most of us do, out of ignorance, because back in the day, we didn't know much about ADHD. I mean, I came out of grad school and a comprehensive residency and all that, and didn't hear word one about ADHD. Nobody said anything about it. And frankly, there was a lot of doubt as to whether or not it actually existed. Now, thanks to the world of science and particularly PET scans and advanced MRIs and so on, we know that ADHD is a real thing. It's a neurologic condition. It's inherited. It has a heritability index of 85%, which is hugely high. And it's been described in the medical literature for at least 200 years. And it's been treated successfully with ADHD, with stimulant medication for about 100 years. And one of the things that hits me a lot in my daily practice is that we have people I have people coming in later in life. Sometimes it's college students. Sometimes it's older folks, folks in their 30s and 40s and so on. And sometimes I am amazed at how extreme their ADHD is. We test with continuous performance testing like almost everybody does. And I mean, sometimes you're just amazed at how these people manage to function for so long. And I would tell you that brighter people probably, and this is a hypothesis, this is not confirmed, but they probably adapt better than folks who maybe aren't quite as sharp. But that does them no favors. I always tell folks that the folks who are lucky are the ones who get identified when they're in the second or third grade, because by the time they hit high school, they're used to being treated and have adapted and adjusted, pretty well, presupposing they've gotten the help they need from psychotherapists who know something about ADHD and are good at teaching compensatory strategies, or basically with an ADHD, or you kind of have to allow them and encourage them to develop their own strategies for dealing with it. But I'm always amazed when I get somebody who's got really bad ADHD and they're like 30 years old or 40 years old, and they finally have hit the limit. They have been promoted to a job that they just can't seem to handle in spite of having multiple years of experience on the job, or they are promoted, or not promoted rather, and are discharged from a job because they don't seem to be able to do the things that the company needs them to do to get to the next step, to get to the next promotion, and so on. So that's one of the things you as a parent, you need to be particularly watchful for, because honestly, especially if you have a couple of kids or a few kids, You know when one of them isn't quite developing the same as the others, that one is, or more actually, but usually it's not 100%. So you probably have, if you have a couple of kids, odds are you've got one that's got it and one that doesn't have it. But that's just a statistical probability. It doesn't do much good in predicting individual cases. But you are better off getting a child evaluated and finding out, no, doesn't have any problems with attention concentration, maybe brighter than average, matter of fact, frequently is, and that sometimes is part of the problem. He's very bright or she's very bright, and they're just bored in school because they're having to do, you know, the same stuff over and over again, because that's what the school mandates, and they've heard it before, know it, and aren't very excited about anything they're doing in school. That's a whole different thing from ADHD, which is they just have difficulty staying focused long enough to get stuff done. Whether, well, and you know, that's something you need to be aware of, and you need to, what do I want to say? You need to help them by maybe taking an extra step and just making sure, getting a diagnosis if one is warranted, not having to worry about it if it's not warranted. I mean, that's fine. It's reassurance, if nothing else. The problem, I think, or one part of the problem is people are so busy nowadays, they just, you know, it takes time to do all this stuff, and you've got to devote some extra time to running your child through an evaluation. But I will tell you that it is much better to have them diagnosed when they're 9 years old than it is when they're 30. Okay? 30 years old, they've already gone through a lot of life. And I've collected a lot of scar tissue from having to work so much harder than everybody else to get to the same place. So they usually have picked up along the way some store of anxiety and or depression, because it's so much harder. I mean, life is tough when you're in a situation that requires you to be organized and consistent and compliant and all those other things, and you have a hard time doing it. Because you know eventually either you're going to get tired of doing it or you're going to not be able to, and then you're going to run into job problems and possible termination, and so on. So I just can't not think of a reason why you wouldn't want an early diagnosis. I wouldn't want to be reassured anyway, because doing it 20 years later, a lot of water's gone under the bridge, and I see it over and over again. And you know, like I probably said before, when I do feedback with a person who's in their, well, they're older anyway, 30s, whatever, it doesn't really matter, 20s, plenty, and they find out that, yeah, they have been diagnosed with, they do have ADHD, they have, and probably they have a lot of it, and it's, you know, always congratulate them on having, you know, put forth the effort to get as far as they have in life. And I never am exactly sure of what kind of reaction I'm going to get, but some people are just relieved. I thought, oh, thank God. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. Some people are angry. Why didn't anybody recognize this before? Why didn't they recognize it when I was a kid? And this is where you get the I don't believe in ADHD stuff, which, frankly, all the years I've been doing this, I find to be a real problem. I have troubles tolerating that, I guess would be the way to say it. It's not a friggin' belief system. It's not a religion. It's science. And you kind of got to go with that because that's the best way we have as human beings of knowing the truth of anything. And so the other sometimes reaction I get is depression, tearfulness, regret. Oh my God, I've wasted so many years. If I'd only known. Da-da-da. Okay? And, when I'm in my office and people are doing this, and I kind of think, well, what were her teachers or his teachers, coaches, parents? What were they not paying attention to when this stuff is not usually real subtle? So that's one of the real strong reasons to get an early diagnosis. And I keep emphasizing that not every specialty can do an adequate diagnosis. There are people out there who are licensed to do psychotherapy who don't know diddly-do about doing assessments, doing evaluations. And most of them will not try to do evaluations. They will refer to somebody who knows what they're doing. But you've got to make sure that you have somebody who's familiar with evaluating for ADHD. It's just, it's for a lot of us, it's an add-on. It's something we had to go back to school, if you want to look at it that way. Had to go to seminars and workshops and that sort of stuff to find out about how to evaluate and frankly even what ADHD is, because most of us, like I said, didn't get much training in graduate school. I hope that's changed now, but I haven't been back in a long time, so I'm not sure. I know it's not in most of the general sort of practice sort of workshops that you go to after you've been licensed, just to do continuing education. There isn't a lot of mention of ADHD. You have to go to a specialty workshop to get that. And that means that you have to be a little bit more careful about who you trust to do your evaluation. And once you get a good one, great, you're home free. Because you'll get a full evaluation. You'll know a lot more about your child. You'll know about strengths and weaknesses, even if they don't end up being diagnosed with ADHD. And that's always, I think, helpful. The idea of people actually knowing their strengths and weaknesses instead of having to experience them all the time and eventually draw conclusions. That's not a great model. I mean, experience teaches, but sometimes it's a little rough when it does. So you can't always count on learning the things you need to know about yourself just by life experience. If you're paying good attention and you can be objective, hey, good for you. Go for it. But most of us don't do very well at that, especially if it's something we've been struggling with since childhood. Because the problem with that is that when you've been struggling with it since childhood, you sort of start believing that that's the way life is. It's hard. It's hard to look at other ways of interpreting that whole situation. And hopefully, if you have never been, if you're an adult now watching this, and you have this inkling that maybe this, I'm talking about you, go ahead and make the move and get yourself a decent evaluation. I mean, it's really an important thing in your life, and can be life-changing, no matter how old you are. And you will at least have the answer to the nagging questions in the back of your mind. So I'm a big believer in doing it. If there's any doubt in your mind, get an evaluation done. And I'm not doing this, for business purposes. Let's put it that way. I'm not trying to make money out of this, because if I wanted to be rich, I'd have gotten an MBA and that sort of thing. You go into this stuff because you want to help people, because the return on income is hardly ever worth the time and effort you have to put into getting all the training and stuff. I say that I'm very happy where I am. I'm very happy with what I've learned to do. I'm very happy with the whole, I could do without a lot of the people in the upper end of things who are trying to make deals with the insurance companies and all that sort of thing, because that doesn't seem to work out very well for those of us in private practice, but that's a different issue. I'm happy being a psychologist. I'm happy being a neuropsychologist. I like what I do. I like the people I work with. And I'm recommending, again, that you go ahead and get yourself evaluated if you think there's an issue, or if you think your child has an issue. Either one of those. Okay, I know I'm a little early this week, but life is intruding on me, and I have to hit the road this afternoon a little later, because I need to get some continuing education units out of the way. So I may or may not be back next week, and I will certainly try, but we're never sure. Okay, this is Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a program to make the world safe for ADHD, because ADHDers are outside-the-box thinkers, and outside-the-box thinkers are the only ones who change the world. So maybe your child will make the big change, or make the big difference that will solve all kinds of world problems. I hope so. Anyway, I can be reached at terrygingrassphd.com, and or around here somewhere you can leave questions or that sort of stuff. I'd love to answer any questions you have, or suggestions for new programs, because I will, tell you this starts out being kind of easy to do, and then after a few years, it gets finding topics. It gets to be a little bit interesting. Okay, so we will catch you next time. Thanks for watching.